1975, I was a New Jersey State Trooper who went undercover and infiltrated the mob. I became Bobby Covert. Stolen loads, buying guns, loan sharking. When I was undercover, I had a costume. That costume was Bobby Covert. My morality changed. To me, bad guys were putting bullets in people's heads. Bad guy wasn't somebody who was stealing. That was just a guy that was putting bread on his table. I learned the street. I learned about what it was like to be a wise guy. There was a threat on my life. When you hear it and you think that somebody in this world is targeting you, it eats at you, and it stays with me to this day. When I surfaced from working undercover, I was working a summer pro league, and someone saw me working the ball game, asked if I was interested in the NBA. I wanted to see some things that were good in society. The bad guys would win if I stopped living my life. Here's my story.
Thanks for that beautiful introduction, Steve. You read it exactly as my mother wrote it. It's great to be here and see so many familiar faces. This story, Covert, is how I get before you. And I'll share a little bit about it and then bring in some thoughts about leadership. In 1973, I followed in my father's footsteps and joined the New Jersey State Police. And as Steve stated in the introduction, that organization was founded by Colonel Norman Schwarzkopf. It's steeped in deep military tradition. Just by the uniforms we wear, if any of you have been through the great state of New Jersey and have had the pleasure of interacting with one of the troopers as you go up and down the Garden State Parkway, you see that beautiful uniform that they wear, and it has leather going in all different directions. And we kind of look like German stormtroopers. And if you hear the name Schwarzkopf, you know why. But General Schwarzkopf was around us a great deal, representing his father as I was growing up in that organization. And keep in mind that deep military tradition, because I was a general road duty trooper, 1973 to 1975. It was a great way to work because we lived like firemen at a house. Our station was where we lived for 2 days on, 2 days off, and then we'd go home. But I got a call one day when I was stationed in Somerville, New Jersey, and there was a little note on the box in the office that said I needed to call division headquarters and speak with Lieutenant John Liddy. Folks, I grew up Irish Catholic. That means you wake up guilty in the morning. I thought I did something wrong. I'm wondering why this lieutenant from division headquarters wants to talk to me. And I'm asking the other troopers, and they said, well, maybe you gave a ticket to a mob guy. The guy's in organized crime. Jack came up and had a conversation with me. He asked if I was interested in doing undercover work. I said, yes, sir. He walked away. I said, Lieutenant, is it narcotics? What is it? Because back then, that's all we were doing. It was narcs back in those days. And he said, I'll get back to you, and if you tell anybody that I'm speaking to him, you're going to be out of the running. Fast forward. That investigation became known as the New Jersey Joint Intelligence Operation, codenamed Project Alpha. There were 2 New Jersey State troopers and 3 FBI agents that made up our own trucking company on the waterfront in New Jersey. It was the FBI, New Jersey State Police, and the President's Organized Crime Task Force that was going to look at how organized crime infiltrates legitimate business. The story is in the book Covert. That, to me, is part of where I wanted to get with the story. Because I thought the greatest day of my life was after 3 years of working in undercover capacity, becoming another person, and the name Bobby Covert is a catchy name for an undercover guy. But we weren't trying to be funny or cute. Back in those days, the word covert was not as well known and used in the military and law enforcement terms. I actually took on the identity of a child who died at birth. The death records and birth records are not cross-indexed in our country. So if you go to the death records, find somebody who died at birth, you can start that persona. So we had the first name the same, ethnic background, Delaney, Covert, Irish, German. It covered me in my new identity as Bobby Covert. And I thought that day was going to be the greatest day of my life when I came back to the fold, that I was part of the New Jersey State Police again. And yet I found it to be one of the most difficult days of my life. For those of you in law enforcement in this room, you know what takes place. 4 o'clock in the morning, you meet at some location. For us, it was the West Orange Armory. 2 troopers in uniform, an FBI agent, state police detective go out and they pick up the defendants. It was 30 mob guys picked up around the state of New Jersey, New York. Others arrested in Florida and Philadelphia. And as they brought them in, they go through the processing. And they're fingerprinting them and taking pictures, and I was upstairs in civilian clothes. A sergeant by the name of Barry Lardier was assigned to be with me. He was in plain clothes as well, but he had his ID on his pocket. I didn't. He said, "You want to walk downstairs and see what's going on?" As we did, probably in a bravado-type kind of way, because I knew this was the first time I would be confronting the individuals that I had been living with for 3 years, I put my hands behind my back in a military parade rest position. Put my chest out, because I'm going to go eye to eye with the guys that I had locked up. A guy by the name of Ronnie Sardella was being fingerprinted. Ronnie I had stolen trucks with, I had done a lot of criminal activity with. Ronnie looked over at me and he said, "Bobby, what they pinch you for?" And before I could answer, Barry said, "Pinch, he's with us, he's a trooper." He obviously thought I was handcuffed. I dropped my hands. And he looked at me, and the look that went between us was not one of anger. It was of disappointment. He said, "Bobby, how could you do this to me? How could you do it to us? You're our friend." I could tell you what everybody had on their feet the rest of the day because I couldn't pick my head up. It felt terrible. And I had a guilt that took place. A few days later, after the raid took place, I got called to division headquarters again. And I was told that there was a informant information and they played a wiretap where there was talk of a hit on me. That doesn't make for a great day. Paranoia started to take place. The story that I wanted to share in telling the story of Covert was not as much the Soprano-esque type investigation that I was a part of, but what took place afterwards. For 30 years, I've been on a journey of healing in dealing with post-traumatic stress. I got lucky in the game of life. A detective by the name of John Schroth, a good friend of mine, came to me one day after I had been surfaced for about 3 to 4 months, and I was testifying in court, and every once in a while we'd stop off at, after a surveillance or after I would testify, we'd stop off in a bar, and I'd go back into my Bobby Covert persona. I'd be buying everybody in the place drinks. I'd be getting a kiss on the cheek and doing the whole mob routine. And he said, "I don't know what's going on with you, but something's wrong." And then I got lucky again. My psychology professor in college, as Steve said, I went to New Jersey City University. That's also known as Harvard on the Hudson in Jersey. And Hank Campbell was my psychology professor. And he was doing work with Jersey City Police Department, and we started doing some informal therapy. I started sharing with him what I was feeling. And he said to me, "Bobby, you're going through post-traumatic stress." And I said, "No, that's stuff that I hear guys coming back from Vietnam go through, not me." Went into total denial. Another telltale symptom. And one more time, I got lucky. Louis Freeh, who became the 15th director of the FBI, was a case agent with us. He was a surface agent while I was undercover. He was also doing the same thing for another case in New York. An FBI agent by the name of Joe Pistone was working that case. You know him as Donnie Brasco. And Joe and I are good friends to this day because I can speak with Joe and I know he gets and understands what I am going through. And the same thing I can do for him. The story of Covert has been a good investment for this country. Because not only did we lock up a bunch of mob guys back in the day, but to this day, it's a story that continues to help law enforcement, military, firefighters. The work that I'm doing today is with people that are experiencing traumatic events. And because of the experiences I had in this story, that I'm able to share with them and help them be reflective on what may be going on in their lives. And that's part of leadership. The leadership process is something that we are all a part of. As Steve said in the introduction, I do presentations on that. And there's 10 different tools that I speak of for leaders. We're only going to talk about 2 or 3 here today. First, when Diana, Dill, and Steve came to me and asked about presenting here, and Julia Brenabar made the connection, that they told me it was 15 minutes that I would have to speak. I do 15 minutes at home when the refrigerator light goes on. If you haven't figured it out yet, I like to talk. And for those of you who are not from the Northeast, and those that are, if I start talking real fast, maybe you can help those people understand what's going on. Because really, it's not that far different. I may say yous guys, you say y'all. I mean, we're all in the same boat. One of the things that's so important about understanding leadership is everyone's role. So there are leaders, there are followers, there are collaborators, and that role changes within the leadership process. Leadership is a process. It's not owned by anyone. It's not one individual who creates leadership. What's taking place here in this room is leadership. It's take stock in children. There are the folks that are stepping up as the sponsors and providing dollars. There are people that are here that are with their students, that are spending time. Everyone plays a role in the leadership process, and the leader changes at times. And our ability to communicate is important. You know, the good sisters of St. Dominic that told me, Delaney, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means God wants you to do twice as much listening as you do speaking. We are not really good at listening. How many times you're at a cocktail party and really what's taking place is that when I'm having a conversation with this gentleman and he triggers something in my mind that I want to say, I stopped listening. All I'm waiting for him is to take a breath so I can jump in because my thought is the most important at the time. We can learn to be better listeners. We can be better communicators. In this day today with the email, and I'm going to say texting, but I don't really know how to do it, and all of the kind of technology that we have, we become abrupt in our conversations. We don't say thank you. I mean, people are putting, you know, there's only like you instead of Y-O-U is you, and like all these kinds of different ways of communicating. We do it so abruptly. I call it email muscle. All of a sudden, it's like people get stronger when they're on email. I can actually hear the pounding of those keys when I read the emails that are being sent to me when someone doesn't agree with me. Yet I also know that if I was face-to-face with that person, they probably wouldn't speak in that manner. And then there's cell phone curtains. You know, I travel a great deal. And I love when we land and that plane is pulling up. Somebody has to get on the phone and allow everyone in the room, in that plane, to hear what they're saying. Hi, we just landed. I'll call you in a minute. Now that was important for the rest of us to hear. I was in Atlanta airport last week, in the men's room. Obviously a business conversation taking place. And I'm thinking, what about that person on the other end? When they hear these toilets flushing, do they think this deal is going to go in the same way? Folks, we can move the bar. We can make a difference by starting and saying, how are you? Asking what's going on in someone's life. I had the great pleasure of being at one of Coach Tony Dungy's practices when he was with Tampa. And it was obvious why people love being with him and why players want to play for him. Because when he went up and down the row while they were doing their stretching and getting ready for their practice, he knew every one of their significant other, their wife, their girlfriend's names. He knew about the kids. He talked about everything but football. Leaders make sure there's an environment that they know that the folks that are with them know that there's concern. Ego. You know that saying where you check your ego at the door? I don't like that saying. This afternoon I'm getting on a flight. I'm hoping that the pilots take his or her ego right into the cockpit and they're confident in what they're doing. Arrogance is what hurts us. When we start thinking we're more important than the bigger picture. You know, when I got into the NBA after having been a New Jersey State Trooper for 14 years, I thought I was pretty important. I mean, I'm on TV. I must be important. My daughter Shannon was very young now. Her husband Ryan is here. Her father-in-law, Judge Doug Henderson. And Shannon was a young child, and we're living back in Jersey. I had a game in Chicago. Called home and said to her mom, how about letting Shannon stay up late tonight with the time difference so she can see me on TV, because obviously I'm important. When Shannon got on the phone, said, Shannon, Mom's going to let you stay up late tonight so you can see Daddy on TV. There was a hesitant voice on the other end. I said, what's the matter, hon? She said, if Mom's going to let me stay up late tonight, I'd rather watch The Cosby Show. I keep that story in my back pocket. The reason being is that when I start thinking I'm more important than I am, I pull it out. I would offer to you, I'm not telling you my stories to tell you my stories. But I'm saying there's stories in your life that are the same. To keep those close to you, because you see leadership in action on a daily basis. I get invited to do presentations and have been speaking for quite some time. I got invited to speak at the Manatee Leadership Program for high school students a few years back. And when I agreed to it, you know, that was in October. And the dinner was going to be in March at Bradenton Country Club. I get home only about 3 to 5 days a month during the course of the NBA season. And it's not consecutive. So when I get home, it's a luxury, and I have a routine that I go through. I'm going to go through the mail, and I want to go through and have my routine, repack the bag so I'm ready to go. Everything was set up. The NBA agreed, like they did today, to allow me to be here and set up my schedule, except that the airline didn't get the memo, and the flight was delayed. And I landed late. So instead of getting home at 11 o'clock in the morning, I got home like 3:30 in the afternoon, yet I wanted to go through the same routine. And I had to be at Bradenton Country Club at 6 o'clock. I can get around New York City quicker than I can from Lakewood Ranch to Bradenton in March. And as I said, it was a few years back. There were a lot of Lincoln Town cars floating around with no drivers. And you know, that time frame, they're all looking for those 2-for-1s. Just like trying to navigate that is difficult. And it was a selfish motive. My stepson, Carter, who's now a senior at Florida State, was a sophomore in high school. And this program was for juniors. So the thought was also to have him join us as I made this presentation and spoke at the dinner, so that hopefully he was encouraged to want to be part of it. Now, as the time starts to get quicker, sooner toward, it's getting closer to 5:15, 5:30, and I'm starting to realize I'm going to be late. So now the panic starts to come in, and there's all kinds of angst in the house, and I want to make sure the DVDs are with me, and do I have my notes? And I don't know when it happened, but at some point this all became my wife's fault. And the tension levels rose in the house. I don't know if it's ever happened in your home, but it happens on occasion. And we're getting in the car, and I'm in this aroused state and acting the fool. Carter's in the back seat. My wife, Billy, who's here with us today, is in the front seat. And as we're pulling out of our house, we live in Lakewood Ranch, and we're pulling out, and we're in this community, and you pull out a couple streets, and we get out onto University. And from the back seat, I hear these words: Bob, your seatbelt. Carter, sophomore in high school, sitting in the back seat, saw something that needed to be addressed and did. That I would offer to you as leadership. think about what his alternatives were. He could see something that was wrong, see something that needed to be addressed, and chose not to. Just ignored it. Just sat back there and said, what am I going to talk to this guy about? I don't need him going soprano on me. Or he could have said, as soon as I got in the car and as soon as I pulled out of the driveway, Bob, are you aware that most accidents happen within 2 miles of the home? How would that have played out? The timing of what he said and the concise manner in which he spoke gave direct communication. That's what leaders do. Leaders in the leadership process are concise and direct. How many times have you been at a meeting when you're looking across the table and the person with the title gives out an assignment and you all look at each other like, how are we going to get that done? Doesn't matter. Keep looking. Don't even look at them. Just keep walking. We don't even discuss or communicate in a concise and direct manner in our meetings at business. And then we carry that over into our homes. The more that we can work on that, the more that we can be better at communicating and having true, honest feelings expressed, the better the leadership process is going to take place. The other part to that story, he was the junior man in that organization. Sometimes leaders may have 1 or 2 years in your corporation. They may be the young folks in this room that become the leaders for a period of time in the leadership process. Understanding that leadership, you know, as it was said, I went back to school at age 56 to get my master's in leadership because I had experienced it my whole life. I had been around leaders, and I saw this leadership process taking place that I wanted to understand it from the academic side. I was fortunate to have my mom and dad as the great leaders in my life as a kid, aunts and uncles, truly raised by a village. And then I had the good sisters of St. Dominic and the priests that taught me at Newman Prep High School in New Jersey and on to college and my college coaches. All of the people that have been in my lives, I saw in New Jersey State Police, I saw great leaders and great leadership process taking place. I saw it in the NBA. I wanted to understand it better. There's theorists that have all kinds of books written about it. I'm going to break it down real simple. Leadership is a process where leaders and followers and collaborators get together that have a mutual interest, a mutual goal, and they want to create real change. In its simplest form. That's what's taking place here. Take stock in children. There are people in this room, all of you, who want to see others have an opportunity. When I see India White, and I see the opportunity that was given to her and how she took it and ran with it, it reminds me of walking past Pat Riley's Los Angeles Lakers in the huddle. And I heard him say to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic, Byron Scott, that whole team back in the day, gentlemen, hard work guarantees you nothing. But without it, you will not accomplish one thing. We've all been told that if you work hard, you're going to be successful. That's not a true statement. I know a lot of folks who have worked hard, and for whatever reason, the door of opportunity did not open for them. But I also know that if we don't work hard, and we can take the words that Pat Riley was saying to his team, we understand that giving others that opportunity, and with them doing hard work. So for the kids in this room that are freshmen, sophomores, juniors in high school, when that door of opportunity opens, you have to be ready to go through it. And that comes from your hard work. Folks in this room are doing what they can to present it. And we've got to continue to do that as a community in order for this leadership process to take place. I was approached a few years back to speak with folks at Bayshore Elementary School. They had an idea for a leadership academy, and they wanted some input. And after I listened to the proposal that Annette Gadelia and Betsy Bickle and all the people that are part of that staff there had, and their vision, great leaders see the invisible. They had a vision of where they wanted to take this. That I said that after listening that I would be supportive of it and sponsor it. It's a 5th grade leadership academy. Folks, if we're going to make a difference, we've got to get them a lot younger. We can't be thinking about seniors in high school and saying we're going to start talking about leadership. The leadership process is teamwork. And speaking to people in 5th grade, in my view, is important. They're about to head into the most difficult times of their lives. That's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. That if everyone in this room takes stock in children, whether it be through this organization or whatever organization you can be part of, that's something that I'd ask you to be reflective of. The true measure of a person is not where he or she stands at times of comfort and convenience, but rather where he or she stands at times of challenge and controversy. Those words were spoken by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. many years ago, and they ring true in every aspect of our lives today. Take the time to take stock in children. Thanks for having me. Stay safe. God bless. I'll see you down the road.
Bob?